One of the most profound things that have stood out for me in my journey into abolition is that abolition is really about love. When we care about each other, we do things differently. When we love each other, we're not looking to punish one another. We're looking to deepen and build partnership and take care of each other. So, what does that mean? What does that look like? And what does that make available? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations for the People with Matthew Solomon. I'm Matthew Solomon, and I'm honored to have Amber Boydston on the show today. Amber, we met on social media, but then we met in person when we had our Reimagining Safety screening in Portland, which was part of the Policing and Justice exhibition at the Portland Institute of Contemporary Art. And so Amber and I have been in touch for over a year, and she's just incredible. Everything she does is rooted in love, is rooted in creating balance and equilibrium. Amber is a Portland-born abolitionist educator with an Irish mother and an Ethiopian father who's been teaching and facilitating trainings around social justice and equity for 25 years since she was a young teen. Her organization, Spirited Justice, focuses on abolition, police abolition, in addition to the abolition of all anti-Black and oppressive systems. She works with businesses interested in decolonizing the way they sustain their practice within communities, in addition to teaching inside and outside of the educational industrial complex from elementary school through higher ed. I'm really, really excited to have her on the show. And so please welcome Amber Boydston. All right, Amber, welcome to Conversations for the People. It's really great to have you here.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, just for the people watching and listening, Amber and I connected, had to be over a year ago. It was before the
Mhm.
Portland screening. Amber's in Portland, and we met very briefly in person, but we've, texted and talked and everything. And you're one of the people that I've met on this journey that I really feel like family with.
Mm.
And so I just, I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I see everything you're doing, and you do a lot of stuff. So thank you, for being here.
I'm happy to be here and was happy when you reached out originally. It had to be over a year ago. And your dedication to actually living the work is something that I really appreciate. So thank
Mm.
you. I
Yeah.
feel like we're really aligned in those areas.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. And along those lines, you're an abolitionist. And
Mm.
one of the things that really has always stood out to me, and I consider myself new on the abolition journey. I've always been aware that there were changes that needed to be made, and I was more like in the reform frame of mind. But certainly after 2020 and George Floyd, I was like, no, burn it down. We need something different, which led to me making Reimagining Safety. And the thing I didn't know that really drew me into abolition was how it's rooted in love. And so much of what you do and say and post is about love and what that looks like in practice. And so I would love it if you would share, uh, was that always a part of you? Was that something you discovered? And then what's the work that you're doing now? Or maybe start with the work that you're doing now and then how you got there. Because
Okay.
it's also important. And yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, welcome to the journey. We're happy that you're here.
Yeah.
I always feel like people who are on this journey have always been on this journey. It just
Yeah.
has been unfolding. I work in in my community in Portland, Oregon, and I have a nonprofit, Spirited Justice, and then I also have a shared business, Ease and Abundance. And in both spaces, they're really education-based, politically focused in terms of making sure that people have access and awareness and the ability to get continued education as needed, and also just a lot of organizing. And so, in with Spirited Justice specifically, my my focus has been making sure that I'm centering Black liberation and also weaving in the spaces that, I talk about it all the time, how we're living in a world that is filled with anti-Blackness and racism, and we're all swimming in that. It's the ocean, not the shark. And so, my organization is also focused on just recognizing that and uprooting that within ourselves. And so a piece of that is just our carceral mindsets. And so understanding that we are people that need to be continuously exploring how our current environment, atmosphere, systems that are in place are impacting us. So I do a lot of education, social justice, education, equity, transformative and restorative justice trainings and facilitations. I provide workshops, and with my business Ease and Abundance, we've been really building a lot of trainings around building community outside of the systems of policing. And so that's how I'm spending a lot of my time. There's definitely on the ground organizing that takes place, in front of everyone and also behind the scenes largely. And so that's how I'm spending my days. Um, and then how I got here. Is that what you're wondering,
Yeah,
Matthew?
how'd you get? Yeah.
Yeah. I come from both, my Ethiopian side of my family and my Irish side of my family. Both sides are educators and organizers and community members. And so I come from a family and always want to pay homage to the families that have laid the path for me to do the work. And I do often say, I feel like the work is bigger than me and it's just like moving through me. So I grew up in families that were really deeply focused on making sure we, knowing our neighbors look like in real time, their names, who was in their home, and not in a surveillance way, but in a way of building community so that we could build pathways to safety. I did a lot of food justice and sovereignty work with my grandmothers, and also grew up for a portion of my life on a large farm. And so was really always connected to just the reality around how food shapes our very essence, and also how food has been used as a tool to oppress. And so I could speak on that forever, but I would say just moving forward, when I was in middle school, I received a peer mediation training from the county, Clackamas County, and it was through that path that I started mediating inside and outside of the prison industrial complex with mothers who had children outside of the industrial complex and wanted to make sure that they were still being raised with the values that they had, and also working with families, mediating, and back in the day we used to do a lot of what was then coined victim offender meetings, and now would be like restorative justice circles. And So I just have always really been interested in what it's like to hold space for people in moments of growth and having difficult conversations. And I think that that's really what helps us, the balance of holding space for the reality of what's taking place currently at a micro and a macro level, as well as really decolonizing our current colonial systems that we're a part of, and holding space for rest and joy and play. Um, and so, in all the work that I do, I'm deeply interested and invested in making sure people know how to breathe, know how to
Mhm.
have moments of silence and pause, and are aware that on a cellular level, we epigenetically are transforming based on everything around us, inside and out, including our thoughts.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. There's so many uh great points, great things that you pointed to. First off, um, in my journey, you were talking about how well, the food justice part, and that was one of the things. So when I was originally going to college in my 20s, I was going to music school, but I was taking sociology courses and anthropology courses because I was aware growing up in LA, this was around the time of the Rodney King beating and the LA riots, and I had friends who, lived in South Central and all of that. And so I was aware that racism existed, that there were disparities in policing, that there were disparities in sentencing and what was considered a crime and what wasn't. And at that time, the analogy that was made was, somebody would go to prison for stealing a loaf of bread, but we had this big savings and loan scandal, and the guy that was convicted, basically went to like a country club, but the concept of stealing a loaf of bread, landing somebody, incarcerated, and you were talking about the ways that food is used to oppress us. And so, that was like, before I had the terminology for food deserts and things like that. And then, so access to food and also access to healthy food, and
So much.
so, yeah. So how does that factor in, like the healthy food part, the access?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as an abolitionist, I think, I was speaking with someone today who said, I'm always thinking about the carceral system and the prison industrial complex. And I said, yes, and when we think about abolition, it's really an uprooting of any system that is oppressing. And so you can see that in our education, in our food systems, and our medical care, and all these spaces, we see that largely, overwhelmingly, Black and Brown people are um, are experimented on, are treated lesser than, and are offered often, like you just said, foods that are rotting, and you didn't say rotting, but unhealthy foods. And that is a direct line to our times of enslavement. And so
Mm. Wow.
there's a handful of us in Portland who are often, pointing to the Oregon Food Bank and saying, no, like you need to do better. Like you cannot give expired food to communities that are that are in that are in need, like all of us, of healthy food. And so I would say how that weaves into the work that I do and that I support is making sure that I'm a part of networks of other communities of the global majority and businesses and orgs that are connected to farmers. And are doing food sovereignty work at a level that's much more focused than my organization is, which is education focused in the social justice world primarily. And so staying connected with those communities so that we can partner and offer um, food that is coming directly from farms where there is a level of intentionality and ability to support healthy foods growing. And then what it looks like practically in schools is like whenever I'm teaching or having a workshop, I always bring foods that I want to share, and that I want to teach. And so I'm acutely aware that a lot of the communities uh, that we all are a part of are not able to purchase the healthiest, organic, non-GMO, whatever healthy is to an individual. We don't always have access to the places that sell the healthiest foods because, and by design, and redlining and gentrification, and so I see my role very much as being able to introduce um, options and ideas with a level of awareness that it should come as a collective growth and not ever a shaming place. And so what I do want is for people to be interested in learning about foods. And so I might bring in an alternative to an Oreo to a classroom of any age people. And we might talk about hydrogenated oils, or we might talk about when GMOs were first were first introduced in the US in 1996. And we might talk about how things taste differently, or what GMO stands for. But as a way to just learn about food and having agency and sovereignty over our choices, and as a way to create pathways to being lifelong learners. And so I think just having foods available, partnering with people who are doing this work, who are connected with farmers, and staying open myself to the continued learning are ways that I weave in food justice and sovereignty work. Yeah.
Yeah, it occurred to me when you brought up GMOs how my kids are in their late teens, and when they were little, this was 10, 15 years ago, like we were talking about, that was when like GMOs were first, at least in my awareness, being talked about, Monsanto,
Sure.
like all of that. And we don't talk about that anymore. Like it's not in our awareness for a lot of us, especially Monsanto and that, and it's really interesting. And I'm sure a lot of that's by design, and also we have short attention spans, and things come and go for those of us who aren't in it and really doing daily work over a long period of time. Like we can get all excited and amped up about something, and then a month later or a year later, we're not even doing that anymore. So um yeah, and then I was going to say also, you started out talking about anti-blackness and how that's woven into everything. And that's something for me that just can never be underscored enough, and so even tying in the food part to slavery was
Mm,
like, oh yeah, that's right, because at the end of the day, it's who's valued, who's considered worthy, who's considered, human or not human, like all of that stuff. And watching that play out, watching the violence that gets played out with it, whether it's here or in Gaza or, a number of places, around the world, um, it's both really painful to observe. At times, a lot of times it seems very hopeless, but there's also the inspiration because there are people that are speaking out and trying to make change and all of that. And so how do you, because I know you have a lot of, like in your teaching and in your being, like there's the spiritual elements, there's the self-care elements, there's the like the fierce fighter, and then there's the part where you got to like step back and take care of yourself, take care of your family and everything. So
mm,
um I'm really interested in how you balance all of that, and
mhm,
how you do that for yourself, and then if that's part of your teaching, and
mhm.
how you do that with other folks.
Mm. I think, like the rest of us, I'm always learning the best ways in the moment in the time of my life that to find a flow And I don't believe in a work-life balance. I
Mm.
do, my career is very much my life. Like I'm living all the things. I would say, I have been, in thinking about Congo and Sudan and obviously Palestine, and Tigray and Lebanon, and many other parts of the world. I think about when I'm in my 40s now. So when I was in my 20s, I was part of this small coalition in Portland around bringing awareness to the war in Darfur. And so when we talk about hopelessness, I think I was born into an active world with genocide. And so were so many of these other people that, of the countries that I just named and all over the world. All of us alive right now, were born into active genocide. So this isn't something new. It's just our level of awareness or access to it. Um, and so when it comes to feeling uh, just the weight of it all, I think many people of the global majority are acutely aware. I mean, I think there's that phrase like it's a marathon, not a race, but we're acutely
Mhm.
aware that this is lifelong. And so it is that balance of holding daily moments of joy, happiness, in whatever ways you can, a laugh, because we have to really, really center that during times of enslavement, indentured servitude, during just capitalism in general, people have always done that, or else we would be completely hardened, and we
Mhm.
aren't. And so it's a misnomer that we don't and we haven't, and that hasn't been a part of what's propelled us to a future that we are in today. The oppressive systems and people want us to think that that's not true. And when you think about like, oh, we used to talk about Monsanto, like things are cyclical, and also you're right, things are intentional, and it is so very much so we can remain complicit in a system, or drones or robots or
Mhm.
asleep. And so how I really, really try to um, how I try to live a life that is infusing myself, and I always talk about like infusing my sensorium um, with possibility and hope is remembering that everything that I'm ingesting um, has to be at a vibration that I'm hoping to also emit, and also life is life. Life is life. And so I'm not saying like every day be happy all the time, no matter what. I'm saying I think it's really, really important for us to be as much as possible in tune with ourselves. Um, if you don't know how you feel, like Harvard did a study on the average emotions that adults can identify, and it was like three. So I'm always like,
Wow.
go, and even if it's, I'm not a huge fan of Marshall Rosenberg, but he's got, you can Google list of Marshall Rosenberg's list of feelings and needs.
Mhm.
Identifying our being able to place what's going on inside us really matters. And that helps us navigate what comes next. And I think sitting in presence is really important. And I also think that remembering everything we're ingesting, it matters. So what I read, what I watch, what I listen to, who I'm around, I'm intentional in those ways as much as possible within the communities that I'm a part of and where I am. We all are a part of spaces and places just naturally. But as much as we can be intentional, remembering that, the five people that we surround ourselves the most with are people that we actually end up being like. So I often am
Mhm.
looking and reevaluating who I'm around. Are these people the kind of people that inspire me, that are speaking about possibilities? Or are they not? Are they just speaking about people? Are they
Yeah.
who is vibrating at a level that I'm trying to reach? And so there's the flow is really in trying to consistently just come back to a place where internally I'm feeling light and open and able to be curious. And it's when those times that I'm not, that I need to recognize, like, is it what I'm eating? Is it my rest? Is it my friend group or lack thereof? Is it my workload? But finding a level of symbiosis within myself is a consistent. I got a pulse on it. Yeah,
Mhm.
and sometimes I lose it, and you got to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Before we go into this last part, I just wanted to ask, how can people reach you? Where would you like them to, look you up, websites, social media, anything like that?
Yeah, yeah. You can look me up under Spirited Justice or Ease and Abundance, websites for those and socials for those as well. I'm a little bit more focused on LinkedIn with Ease and Abundance, and for socials, definitely have a larger engagement on Instagram for
Yeah.
yeah, Spirited Justice. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta say, when you popped on and it said ease and justice has entered the room, is that like that's the message that popped up? I was like, all right. That's awesome. So in the spirit of possibility, because I like that you mentioned that, and in my conflict resolution facilitation, it really is about like we start with possibility, and then we go through like how do we get there, or well,
Mm,
we start with identifying like what's going on right now, what's the issue, but then we invent a possibility that we can step into and do the work. So in your vision of a liberated world, like
mm,
what does that look like?
mm. I mean, I would say I'm always in the dream realm first. So I think a lot of people are in the scene what's happening now, and I'm just always dreaming first. In a liberated world, magic,
Mm,
movement, uh, clean water, uh, telepathy. Uh, mm, um, I I can't dismiss that everything we read points to this really high vibrating, magical, sentient life that has been humanity. And I know that like our eyes are like the lens of a camera, and our brains are, they're just imprinting what we've seen multiple times. And so then I'm just like, I think that in a liberated world, I see people freely able to speak about, talk about, and practice the things that are deeply rooted within them. Um, and I think that would lead to just the most magnificent experience, whether this is a dream or this is real. I think it would lead to just profound, um, explosive, just brilliant and deeply connected moments. We are just really, really powerful beings. I think that's what I always want people to know is we are incredibly powerful. Our minds are powerful, our bodies are, even within our level of abilities. And the more that we wake up to that remembering, our liberation will just start to seep out in ways that we can't even quantify or articulate. It'll be so profound. And so a liberated world is really starts just I think with our breaths, and where it leads is just what is that word, like ineffable.
mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
ineffable space. Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Amber, thank you so much. It's been amazing talking with you, and I really appreciate you being here and sharing. So thank you for being here.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. I feel I feel so much better than I did an hour ago. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening in. Please follow Amber at Spirited Justice. We'll post all the socials and websites in the comments section, in the show notes. I mean, yeah. And then please go watch Reimagining Safety, reimaginingsafetymovie.com, and at Reimagining Safety Movie on Instagram. And please like, share, subscribe, do all the things to help us keep going and to keep spreading the word. And as always, thank you for watching Conversations with the People. Thank you for listening in. And until next time, all power to the people.